What's up, you guys? How you doing? How you doing out there? Welcome to another episode of How We Roll. That's right. I've got the voice sort of, I guess you can say, cross between, what is the term I'm looking for? Oh yeah, a strip club DJ and a lounge singer. That's right, and why is that? Because I'm a little sick today, guys, just a little bit sick, but that's okay, I'm just sitting up, and it's funny, I got out of bed, and I'm like, you know what, I know these guys are chill, it's bad enough I'm gonna be late, but yeah, I feel like something, what's the term I'm looking at? Oh, yeah, that's right, I feel like that bag that you used to set on fire and set in front of your neighbor's house when you were young and teenagers and doing all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, you know what? I am right now, I'm really feeling like I'm a bag filled with poop set on fire. But that's okay. I am Solar Gray, ouch! Oh god, I said I am Solar Gray, the cinematic sorcerer, coming at you guys up and live and all that jazz. And, yeah, so welcome to How We Roll. Let me get the business part out of the way. First off, I'm going to say, hey, thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being here. And if you guys want to join the show, then feel free, and I mean that, feel free to join the show over here with us. And, of course, wrong one. Sorry. Yeah. Feel free to join the show over here in the chat. What's going on, guys? Hey, I'm glad you guys are here. We got the guys going there. I am going to have to ask you guys to watch your language because I won't have time to pause the show to approve of your guys' stuff. I'm talking to you, Ganja. That's right. I noticed you. Hi. And if you guys want to join us on the show, then hey, thanks, and share the link and all that jazz. But in the meantime, let me say that if you guys want to send an email and all that stuff, I am gonna say, hey, what's going on? And hit me up at Gmail or backinthedeck at gmail.com. That's backinthedeck at gmail.com. You can also make sure to hit a critical roll or a critical hit on that subscribe button. I'm not asking you to smash it, I'm just saying roll a natural 20 so that you can then follow it up with a successful hit on that, on that bell, that little bell down there, because, that will give you all of the announcements for when we go live on YouTube. Join the Deckers on the Book on Facebook so that you can see the stuff that we've been up to, all the Deckers, including each other, so you guys can talk and we can form a community. And of course, hit us up on all the social media at backinthedeck. That's at symbol BACKINTHEDECK, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. And it looks like we have a Tumblr now, which is a little weird. And of course, if you guys just want to listen to my nasally voice as I talk with people and not see any of the pictures and all that stuff for the full interactive immersion experience, then you guys can head over to soundcloud.com/BID_P. Now, I appreciate that you guys are here, and if you really want to help us out in ways that go a little bit deeper than hitting that subscribe button and sharing these videos, I'm going to say head on over to patreon.com/BID_P, where you guys can actually see the shows that we do, have access to the archive for as little as $1 a month, and you guys can actually participate in polls, and those are the letters when you say, hey, could you cover this game, or could you talk about this subject here? I'll listen to you guys a lot faster because the patrons get a whole bunch of stuff. Just like our number one patron right now, Mr. Paul Mansfield. That's right. He is on the tier right now where I have to give him a shout out at every single show that we do, and we do anywhere from 2 to 5 shows a week. So he is all out there and all that stuff right now. So, thank you guys for showing up. Yeah, I know, and yeah, that's right. I know you're not my stalker. All right, I know you're not my stalker out there. I'm just like, oh my God, it's one of those things and all that stuff. But yeah, we gotta talk. There's some stuff we gotta talk about. But right now, I'm gonna go silent for just a little bit so I can fix the sound real quick because I know I'm chipmunk. So give me just a sec, guys, and enjoy our beautiful little art there. But I want you guys to know that we are not going down. Ooh. Yeah, so we should be good on that. We should be good on that. Right now, I shouldn't be chipmunking, and that's a good thing. Oh man. So yeah, that's what we got. That's what we're doing. And ooh boy, that's right. Okay, so here we are in the middle. There we go. All right, so here we are. I'm doing the thing, and I'm just going to fade out just a little bit. Fading. All right, there we go. So last week, I ain't gonna lie, last week really took it out of me. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm feeling so terrible this week. It was a whole lot of emotional stuff, talking about the riots, what was going on, and how I used gaming to seriously find a way to get past that kind of thing. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, so I'm gonna turn down my mic just a little. All right, cool. That's a lot better. All right, we good? We good. Sorry. What you guys don't see is like out over here in the Wizard's Tower when I got the mic up a little too loud. I'll say something and I'll get a rumble in the jungle. So, but this week, we're gonna go over. We talked about the summer of '92. Okay, and yeah, we talked about the riots and all of the military grade weaponry that was left on the streets of my neighborhood. And not gonna lie, y'all, not gonna lie, it was a little tough. It was a little tough for me to talk about a lot of that stuff, primarily because again, it's been 25, 26 years, and a lot of stuff you just don't get over. It's very much a sense of the protectors. Like when you grow up, where I grew up, you don't depend on the police to protect you. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you don't like the cops. Well, what happens next time you get robbed?" I'm like, the same thing that happened last time I got robbed. I just deal with the lack of whatever it was that I was using. So yeah, that was it. That's what was, that's how I handle it. Or I suppose you can say that's how I roll. Thank you very much. And but yeah, it was like I said, I got some footage from last week right here. Just you know, a few of those things. ABC Market. Now this one is special because that is across the street from my elementary school. So that particular ABC that made the news, being looted and all that stuff, and of course that's Vermont Avenue. This is all like my neighborhood and all that stuff. So yeah. Um, oh well, thank you, Vixen. That's a little bit of sorry, just checking out some of the comments in the chat, and it's like, yeah, my gravelly voice is so hot. Never thought I would appeal to women sounding like Tom Waits married a Muppet. Anyway, um, So going over all these old memories from last week was not my idea of a really good and healthy thing to deal with and all that jazz. So this week we're going to talk about what happened after that summer. Okay, after that summer, and I want you guys to know I'm leaving a lot of stuff about my life out of this because, again, I'm only talking about all of this in relation to gaming, okay? And how I used gaming and the creative process of, the GMing, the storytelling, the writing of all that stuff to cycle through the effects I had of growing up in that, okay? So there's a lot of stuff that's there. I'm not going to talk about the running away from home. I'm not going to talk about the carnival stuff. I'm not going to talk about the fire breathing and the juggling bowling balls or even the well, I will talk a little bit about the reputation for Satanism because that's actually relevant. Um but yeah, by this point we're talking spring of or not spring, but fall of 92. And that was when I'd finally gotten in to a school that a wasn't in my neighborhood, and that's a big thing. That's a really big thing. Like, it wasn't in my neighborhood, but though my junior high school wasn't in my neighborhood, it was in one that was just like it. um yeah, I mean, that was a serious thing. It was like, yeah, check it out. I'm going here, and yeah, I'm leaving the neighborhood. I'm leaving the hood, and I'm going to the barrio. Great, that was really, really a big thing where it was like, oh well, I get to leave there. That's fantastic. But then I finally go somewhere that was out of my neighborhood, and it was in not quite a better neighborhood, but a more legendary one. And I'm talking about Hollywood High School, chic territory. Now this is actually kind of funny because yeah, it's what's the term I'm looking for? Um well, my first junior high school or my first high school was home of the Saints. My junior high school was home of the Trojans, and now my first high school, the one I actually wanted to, was home of the Sheiks. So let's just say I had a very prophylactic adolescent. Anyway, but I got to go to what's the term? I got to go to a school that was far out of my neighborhood. I mean, Hollywood High School is literally on the corner of Sunset and Highland, okay? This is Hollywood, Hollywood, da 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 da, Hollywood. And it was a performing arts magnet school. Now, for um, those of you guys that don't know what that term is, it's very simple. A magnet school is a school where they're in decent areas or they actually get funding from the school district to what is the term I'm looking for? They get funding from the school district to get a good program. Okay, one good program. My junior high, that was John Adams, the place where the first few episodes where I met Peanut and Angel and all those guys, and Gladys, all those guys that got me into Dungeons and Dragons. Um, that was a gifted, high achieving foreign language magnet school, which meant if you had an IQ of a certain length, um, or of a certain measurement, you could measure into there, and your schedule was your general classes, reading, writing, arithmetic, history, but you also had a workload of something else pertaining to that program. In junior high, it was foreign languages. So I ended up flunking out of Spanish, flunking out of German, doing pretty well in Japanese, and in doing okay in um, doing okay in Latin. And yeah, I was that kind of scholar. And Ganja, dude, come on, man, give me a break with the profane words. Every time you leave a comment, I have to read it and all that stuff, and you're throwing me off my groove. Anyway, um, so yeah, but Hollywood High School. Now again, they get that, and then they say, hey, you poor and unfortunate kids that live in areas that don't have a whole lot of money, if you pass our tests, we will send a school bus to your neighborhood, pick you up, and bring you to our school to study in our program. So it was pretty much easy to get grandfathered in because I'd been in a magnet school since the sixth grade. And so going from one magnet school to another magnet school kind of gave me a leg up on getting into the program. So this one wasn't a gifted high achieving one. This was a performing arts magnet where we would be studying everything it took to become an entertainer. And at that point, I had spent quite a few summers juggling for pennies in my bucket. And I come from a long family of like church singers and stuff like that. And I had an affinity for acting, because all of those games of pretend and all that jazz. Couldn't dance, could not dance. Dancing was not one of my things. Um, every performer has their weak spot. Prince, for example, wasn't very good at miking a stage or miking a recording studio. But, so there I was, like acting, singing, doing tech work, writing, editing, and at least editing story content and punching up. Was not good at dancing, because nobody can do everything except for maybe Lady Gaga, eat her heart and take her power, and Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino, eat his heart and take his power. Now, so I was here. I was here. I finally made it to Hollywood High School, home of the sheiks. This was a big thing for me because I had finally gotten to a school that had like art on the arts outside, and not just graffiti, but art, you know. And this was a school that was populated with a lot of people other than inner city urban black. Okay, and it's funny, they say that exposure is the biggest exposure is the biggest cure for any prejudices, and it was true. In um, my first junior high, it was a bunch of black kids, a bunch of Mexican kids, and I literally mean like they were from Mexico, not just El Salvador, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, but they were Mexican. They were from Mexico. Their parents were immigrants, some legal, some illegal. I mean, I went to school with dreamer kids, and but here, I was at school with just plain white people and Dominicans and El Salvadorians and Armenians and Russians and other black kids and African kids and just kids from all over the world, because um, it wasn't just um, it wasn't just white kids. And I wasn't the only magnet student. There were 700 of us from all over the greater Los Angeles area. And people don't know, but Hollywood has a very Eastern European concentration. Like, all the black people live in South Central Watson Compton. But what you didn't know was that the area of Hollywood specifically, like Hollywood and Vine and Cahuenga and all that stuff, is primarily Russian, Armenian, and Thai. So I had kids from all walks of life. All. We were all there for one purpose: to get famous. And some of us did. Some of us did. But my hands are strong, so I ain't gonna be dropping any names. But what I am gonna say is I was finally there. I was learning acting, and I was learning how to sing properly, and I was, hell, by this time I'd been playing bass guitar for about 3 years.
yeah, for about 3 years, or should I say, I was playing with a bass guitar, based on what music theory I could find and figure out from the encyclopedia. But here I had teachers and other students to bounce stuff off of, and it was it was great. It was bigger than I'd ever thought I could ever accomplish coming from 90th and Hoover. You know what I mean? And I could not handle it. I could not handle it. Not because, oh, I was so overwhelmed, I can't stop crying. Oh my God, the Beatles are here and they're touring with Michael Jackson, and I'm a 16-year-old girl in 1984. No, no, it was because I did not have the discipline. I had gotten used to waking up early in the morning. I'd been getting up at 5 to go to school since I was in the 6th grade. Now I'm in the 10th grade, so, hey, what's going on? But no, 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 no. I didn't have the discipline to actually show up to class and not be distracted by Hollywood Boulevard. Now, I knew the area because I wasn't always a good kid. And most of the bad stuff that I did, I was smart enough not to do it in my neighborhood. So I went to Hollywood to do all those things. And I was hanging with the gutter punks and, getting into fights with skinheads and hanging out on the Sunset Strip and paying people to go in to stores and give me liquor and all that other stuff because, that was just how I was rolling back then. A lot of fights, a lot of skinheads, a lot of white supremacists. But now I was here. I was here legitimately. And I had finally learned what work was. But at that point, I met my friend Bear. Now understand, this was 1992. And, excuse me, this was way before the Matrix. And before, way before Columbine. Okay, so at the time, I had this weird kind of style about me where I would wear like hippie shirts with tie-dye and ripped jeans, heavy boots, and a long black trench coat. I was all about the trench coats. I still am. And and yeah, I mean it was back then. This was the rise of grunge. Like that summer, um Nirvana had just hit the scene. Okay? So couldn't turn on a radio and any radio station that wasn't a rap or soul station and not hear it's a dangerous you wanna entertain and sure enough, yeah, I hurt myself to make you guys laugh. And so yeah, these guys were like, oh my God, there's a black person that likes rock and roll, and the Black Album had come and gone. We were waiting for the next Metallica album. I'd gotten into like the Seattle scene, and I met my friend Bear. And Bear was a confusing dude. He was a really confusing dude. No lie, this dude was 6'3", 6'3.5", 370-pound white dude with a mullet. And he was also an aspiring martial artist. And we had done this thing where we were holding cans. We would seriously, like, we would hold a can here, right here, like in between these two fingers, or in between our finger and thumb, and he would run and shoulder block the can. And I'm like, well, I ain't that heavy, because at the time I was 6'1" and maybe 111 pounds. So I've grown a bit since then, because I'm 45 or 42 now. Anyway, and he would shoulder block it, and it would crush the can, and we'd be like, oh my God, yeah, you're so strong, and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, hold the thing, hold it up, wait, a little higher, little that. And I had taken 3 steps and done a jumping side kick, like Street Fighter, just, and I was wearing steel-toed construction boots at this time. And sure enough, I got the perfect height. I'm like, yeah! And I hit the wall, and the building shook, and the can was crushed, but not by my heel. It had actually turned out that he was holding the can here, and my boot landed square in the middle of his hand. And I mean, it was just the perfect kick. And yeah, perfect kick in the middle of his hand. And I landed, I landed my superhero pose and I had the trench coat going. I'm like, yeah. And then I looked up and I saw my boot print in the middle of the bear's front paw. And and the kids at school were freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, he is gonna beat you, stupid! Oh, dude, what the ah?" And I'm like, you know what? If he's going to, and I took off my coat, I got down on one knee, and I'm like, I messed up. So if he's gonna do it, let it happen. He gets one square hit, and it'll probably knock me out. But hey, it happened. I'm sorry, and if you want to do it back, that's cool. And he went to the nurse's office, and he kind of looked at me like, puny human. And and this guy, essentially, if life were the Princess Bride, okay, this guy would have been my Fezzik at this point, because the next day he comes into school, and I'm like, dude, are you okay? Is your hand all right? And he holds up his hand. He gets this stern look on his face. And this guy, again, he was big. He was big old bear. And he had this sinisterly deep voice for a 17-year-old boy, all right? Just sinisterly deep. And he holds up his hand and he goes, he looks at a table, and then he just thwap the hand that I kicked. And he's like, you can't hurt me, man. Anyway, tell me about yourself. And I'm just like, my heart was just, oh, okay, yeah, cool. um, and of course, coming from the ghetto, talking about the funky, funky ghetto, I'm thinking this is a setup. I'm thinking like, all right, well, not a setup, because I wasn't in the hood anymore. And he's just like, I probably would have kicked your butt up and down the schoolyard, but you took responsibility for what you did, and you even gave me the first punch. I gotta respect that. You're a good dude. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. And yes, that does mean I'm Inigo Montoya. And yeah, we did have a Facini. His name was Hillel. And he was very much like Mr. Inconceivable, because he was a little bitty Jewish guy that walked around with us and always had a scheme. And we're like, well, we got nothing better to do. All right, fine. Yeah, what do you got, Hello? Anyway, and okay, I'm getting to it. I know I've been talking for a half hour. And sure enough, we start talking, and I find out that this dude's in the D&D. I'm like, you're in the D&D? And he's like, of course I'm in the D&D. Let me introduce you to the rest of my crew. And I meet the rest of the crew that was at the school, and they kept talking to me about this dude named Larry. And Larry was, if I were to quote the descriptions and all the things that I had been told that he was, and the way that he thought, you guys would be like, okay, so they're introducing you to a crazy person. You should run now. And turns out that Big Bear was a writer, and that was a really big thing. He was a writer, a good writer, a poet, short stories, prose. Like he was really good for a 17-year-old high school kid. And sure enough, this dude, this guy, this big old bear of a teenage boy, was like, oh yeah, no, we do a D&D campaign, blah, 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 blah. I live in Carson, blah, 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 blah. And he showed me his character, and it was like this 12th level, half human, half lion thing with like a super high attack value, a super low armor class. I'm like, dude, what is up with, wait, how can you have it? And he's like, yeah, you know that show Beauty and the Beast? Now, flashback for y'all Game of Thrones fans out there. There was a TV show starring Linda Hamilton and Ron Perlman that came on back in the 80s called Beauty and the Beast, written by George R.R. Martin, or Gurr Martin. And it was a modern fantasy where Ron Perlman, who at this time never showed his real face, that didn't actually start happening until The City of Lost Children in 1994. And it was Linda Hamilton. You guys know her as the mom from the Terminator franchise, you know. And I'm like, oh, that's the mom from the Terminator franchise. And it's this modern fantasy where there's a bunch of people that live underground in the sewers of New York City, and their protector, was played by Ron Perlman. It's a character named Vincent. Oh, God, I'm all gassy. And he was literally half lion. Like, his dad had the first episode of Black Mirror. And yeah, that was kind of the thing, except it had gone to its major thing. This was back in 1987, but it had gone to its logical conclusion. And yeah, I'm just kind of going, okay. So, since it was the 80s, we have Linda Hamilton looking very pretty and Ron Perlman with the Bon Jovi hair. I believe I actually saw that same haircut in The Lost Boys, actually. It just kind of like, yeah, look at me. I got, a big half lion with teased hair. And yeah, Vincent the Catman. That's right. And so I sat down and I'm like, well, do you guys have time to play and stuff? And they're like, well, our GM is Larry. He doesn't go to the school. And I live in Carson. And I'm just like, oh, that's a bit of a trek. But I think I can swing it because I know one of the buses that goes on the freeway by my house goes all the way to this street in Avalon. And he's like, well, I'm just off that street in Maine. So, and this was the beginning of a friendship that lasts to this day. All right. Again, 1992 till today. I meet this dude, and there was Peter and Alex and Adele and all those guys. And I had kind of found my tribe with my gaming because there I was, this angry adolescent that was into D&D, that was a little weird. And it turns out I wasn't a little weird. I was just a theater kid. I was weird. I was weird. And so sure enough, we would play games. Now, I didn't want them coming to my house at the time because the riots had just gone by. I didn't know how safe it was for white people in my neighborhood. And my mom and I were going through a thing. Okay, we were going through a thing because the riots had hit my mom harder than it hit me in a way that I didn't understand because she was being strong for us. But I was, again, the youngest by 8 years. Okay, youngest kid by 7 years. And with that, I'm gonna say that meant by the time I was in high school, all my other brothers were adults, and my great grandparents were passed on. They were and still are deceased. Hope they still are. If they're not, then hope they don't know how to use computers. So at this point, it was just my mom and myself. And when a person has dedicated their lives to taking care of a bunch of people, and then there's only one left, and that one doesn't really want much to do with you, how do you adjust? Now, how do you adjust when two of your sons are at war on the other side of the world? Because two of my brothers were in Iraq at this point. One is Army, one is Marine Corps. And they were at, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Fox, whatever desert thing it was. I don't know. We've been in perpetual war since 9/11, and this was the first one that came in. So, two of her sons are literally under more gunfire in a place that she can't call them into the house. And our city had just been burned to the ground. All right. And now she has one son that doesn't really want anything to do with her or the neighborhood or anything else, and who really wants to find his place in the world outside of what it seems um, she had worked her butt off to achieve, but it still wasn't enough to really advance, you know? So there was a lot there. In short, I was a jerk. And she wasn't nothing nice either. And so I didn't want my D&D friends coming over to my place. So I would hop a bus down to Carson, California, and that would be another 2 3 hour ride, followed by about a mile walk from the bus stop to the house. And this was the first time that I'd actually seen that trope where people were hanging out in the garage and playing games. And this garage is a recurring character in in these shows, okay? Because that was when I walked into the garage that really shaped me as a gamer and a musician and an adult. It was a big thing. But and these guys told stories in ways that I didn't quite get because I gamed and I told stories as a way to escape where I came from, where I lived, what I went through. So my bad guys were a little sympathetic, but they were unrelenting. And I'm hanging out with a higher socioeconomic class now. So they're thieves, and they were thieves, not rogues back then. This is pre 2000, so this was before third edition. But their thieves were nice. Their thieves ran more like the Thieves Guild in the Discworld novels, which by then I hadn't read because I hadn't heard of them. But these were the guys. Brian also. No, wait, not Brian. No. Big Bear. Big Bear had this thing that we talked about a lot, which was a car. And yeah, he had a car. And this was like, oh my God, I died and fallen into 80s movies because here I was hanging out with teenagers that had that had a car. That was weird. Not just a car, but a legal one. And so I would be gaming with these guys, and he would do weird things like bring me home afterwards. And we lived about 30 minutes apart. Yeah, it's about a 30-minute drive, door to door. And he's like, I don't mind coming down here. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, you don't mind coming to my neighborhood? And again, the upper economic classes that I had dealt with were all the beautiful Southern California's San Fernando Valley. And this was when I learned that common sense and culture really changes about every 30 miles. Because the people in Carson didn't mind coming out to my neck of the woods. They're like, dude, it's 20 minutes away. And we share a street. Like, his main street was my main street. His Avalon was my Avalon. His Figueroa was my Figueroa. And he essentially lived 130 blocks from me. Because Hoover and Figueroa, I lived on 90th Street, in between those two streets. Well, he lived on 231st and Figueroa. So, literally, we could just follow that street to our places. We were geographically connected. And that says a lot culturally as well, because no matter how uppity the people in Carson get, they're an hour walk away from where stuff got bad again. And the people that were doing bad stuff in my neck of the woods knew that they were only an hour walk away from where it got better. And after the LA riots, that realization had become big. So there were a few more borders opened up. And my mom was like, well, he's willing to bring you home? Yeah, you can hang out with him. That's fine. And from there, I became a better musician, a better gamer, and he started loaning me fantasy novels. We're talking more of the Belgariath, the Wheel of Time series. Like, I was into Stephen King. I'd read the Dragons of Time of Seasons, Time of Day. But he'd loaned me like the Dragon Riders of Pern, the Discworld novels, and just opened up my head and said, I can see that you're really thirsty for this kind of knowledge. Um, and you do all that stuff, and my mom thinks you're pretty cool. Now, I gotta say something about Ma Pam. Um, Imagine Brienne of Tarth, but instead of the sword, she used pencils, pens, and calculators. Okay, this was a very tall woman. I mean, literally, like she could have been like a medieval knight, but she had decided to go bureaucracy. And boy, I had never met anyone that was intimidating with a look that didn't imply violence. Like, my mom was scary. My mom was scary in a way that I'd become accustomed to. She looked at you in a certain way, and at worst, you were going to get your jaw broken, which meant I never pushed it that far. No, my mom never broke my jaw. But this woman looked at you in a way where it told your soul that if you push her the wrong way, she would ruin your life. Like, you would live, but you'd no longer have any opportunities, you know? And that was like last resort. First resort was she would give you this look, this schoolmarm look that said, I know you're better than that. And if you prove me wrong, what do you get from winning? She said all of these things just with a look. Just like, you're better than that. And I know you're better than that because I allowed you in my house. So don't make me a liar. And I'm just like, wow, that was, ooh. Uh, yeah, that's right. Brienne of Tarth with a maester's chain, but also with this air of Tywin Lannister. It was weird. Boy, that was like pop culture geeky. Essentially, she looked at you in a way that was a cross between the teacher you didn't want to disappoint and the boss that you're afraid would not only fire you, but would make sure that you would never work in that entire industry ever again. And because of hanging out with these people, these gamers, these fantasy people, my reading and my writing had just skyrocketed. It had just skyrocketed. And we talk about a lot of stuff even to this day, because even to this day, we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And this was where I really started to understand the alignment system in Dungeons and Dragons. Um, and that was, the good, neutral, evil, lawful, neutral, chaotic. I mean, I was very chaotic good. Um, and some of the people that I was hanging with at the time were neutral evil or lawful good and all that stuff. And via these games and these experiences and the fact that we actually played the same games, um, we were able to come to some sort of compromise and forge friendships that literally have lasted to this day. Okay, this day. I mean, quite honestly, it's possible that I could reach out to Bear and actually have him be a guest on this show. You know, I mean, like, I know he's not available right now, but yeah. Um, but it's literally one of those things where if I wanted to, if I really wanted to, um, it really is a matter of, um, I could give him a call right now and he would probably pick up and we would laugh and have a good old time and talk about like the next time we could get together and see each other. Cause we became those kinds of friends. And this was kind of the thing that I was looking for when it came to being a gamer and finding my tribe, you know. Now, this seems like the good part to end this whole section of my life as a gamer, but this is only the halfway point because sadly, and this is a big thing, as I was a sophomore at this school, he was a senior. So he graduated. He graduated that year by the skin of his teeth. And our adventures of the Rocky Horror Picture Show and gaming and all that other jazz were going to be on hold because he had to decide on whether or not he was going to college. But I had the rest of the group. You know, I had Adele, I had Peter, I had Alex, and later on, I got the Wesley of our group, who went back to school the next year. But with all that, I'll see what I can do on having him on next week. Okay. So with that though, you know, we had so many different adventures, and all of this was based on the fact that we were both gamer geeks, you know, and yeah, that was a really big thing. Now next week, we're going to talk about the following year. We're going to talk about 93, because there were some changes that happened in 1993. And yeah, we're going to go on to that, because 92 was the year I got to Hollywood High School, but 93 was the rise of a gaming company that didn't do Dungeons and Dragons. So I want to thank you guys for showing up this week. I'll see what I can do on getting Bear on next week. All right, I'll let you guys know that. I'll see what I can do on getting him on next week. But thank you guys for showing up. Thank you guys for that, and thank you for watching your language after a while. God, that was pretty awesome. But with that, I'm gonna say thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming down. And if you guys want to join the show or just getting up, it's a little bit too late, but make sure to roll a critical hit on that subscribe button and follow up that critical hit with a successful hit on the little bell, so that you can be notified whenever we go live or whenever we post something up. That's a public thing. With that, I'm going to say, if you want to join us over there, well, I'm going to say some people joined us this week, and that was awesome, and that was the people over in the chat. Thank you guys very much in P-City. And with that, I'm going to say, hey, it's too late for you guys to join us this week, and I appreciate that you want to. If you want to ask me any questions you don't want the rest of the world to hear about, then feel free to send an email to backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's backinthedeck@gmail.com. Thank you for looking us up on YouTube. Share the videos. Get more of the people that you know to like start watching the show, especially if they want to know a little bit about me and all my nerd cred and all that jazz. Now, also feel free to head over to soundcloud.com/BID_P if you want to listen to our archive for absolute free, because that would be awesome for you guys to like do all that stuff. And you know how awesome it would be? It is so awesome that you guys will want to listen to us when you're at the gym or in a boat or in a car or something like that, that you can download the audio from all of our episodes for free onto whatever device that you got over at soundcloud.com/bidp. Join us over on Deckers on the Book, which is our particular group on Facebook, that record hive of scum and villainy, where you guys can talk to each other about various things. And if you guys really want to know the other stuff that we're up to, then just head over to twitch.tv/BID_P, and that's where we do most of our shows live. We got a chat over there as well, and we do all of that jazz there. That's over at twitch.tv/BID_P. And if you guys want to help us out in a serious way and really help us keep these lights on, then for as little as $1 a month, but if you want to give us 100, hey, I'm with that. Then just head on over to patreon.com/BID_P. And you guys have access to the entire archive for as little as $1 a month. That's $1 per month to check out what we got, all the stuff that we do live, and the stuff that we do with our co-hosts. And that also gives you access to other things like, oh wait, what would it give you access to? It would give you access to things like and request to do certain episodes or certain games and all that jazz. So that is what you guys can do over there for us right now, or any time that you guys have the time to do that. Always head over to the Patreon. And with that, I'm gonna say, if anybody tells you guys that you can't have the hobby you like because of circumstances of your birth, your race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, your disability, or your budget, you just tell them to take those cards and put them back in the deck. This is Solar J, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys for finding out how we roll, and we will see you guys next week.